And now we turn to Daf Samach Zayin Amid Beis, continuing with the statement of Rabbi Yochanan. So again, in the first case that we saw in Amid Aleph, Rabbi Yochanan addressed the case where he ate an entire kizayis from this mixture, and that kizayis was machol sasus, and he ate it within a short period of time, namely kizayis v'chechis pras. He gets malchus. Tama v'lo mamasha. But what happens if after the Iser fell into the heter, let's say nevela fell into basar shchuta, and he takes out the nevela, he removes the be'en, that's called tama v'lo mamasha. Again, tama v'lo mamasha applies when there's heat, when there's cooking going on. So the additional nevela in this mixture gave a taste of nevela into the basar hamutar. I remove the nevela, but I have its tam. I don't have mamoshes. I don't have the nevela, but I have the tam that it left behind. Is asur v'yein lokin olav. Now let's assume, for argument's sake, that asur means asur min Torah, midaraisa, and we're maintaining a position which is called tam ki ikar. But since he didn't actually eat the kazayas of the mamoshes, of the be'en of the nevela, therefore he doesn't get malchus. He violates an Isur Torah, but he doesn't get malchus. Bimriba tam livgam. But let's say that he added Isur to this mixture of heter, and that Isur that he added has a detrimental effect on the tam of the mixture. In such a case, Rabbi Yochanan says it's mutter, and as we said earlier, Rabbi Yochanan belongs to that school of thought of all those Hamoraim that we mentioned that holds no saint tam lifgam is mutter. Now, look carefully at the language of Rabbi Yochanan. He doesn't say no saint tam lifgam mutter. He says riba tam lifgam mutter. What's riba tam? That's what the Gemara is going to ask now. V'lema, he should have said him nosan tam lifgam mutter. What's riba? What it means he added something? Hakamash malan. Rabbi Yochanan wants to tell me a bigger chiddush. Even though that pagam, that impairment of the taste, was not just a result of the Isur that got mixed up. The Isur per se maybe wouldn't have created a tam lifgam, but there are other ingredients in the mixture that contribute to making the tam pogum. They contribute and work together in tandem with the nevela, the Isur that fell into this mixture. And in such a case, riba, he added to this mixture a tam lifgam. So basically, Rabbi Yochanan is telling me now is that the tam pogum is inherent in the object, in the Isur that fell in. If the Isur fits under the description, the category of tam pogem, then it's a tam pogem, and that's it. It's mutter. Hilchasa kalishna basra diresh lakish. And we're going to paskin two kulas here. One kula is like Rabbi Yochanan, that it's irrelevant if the pagam is a result of other ingredients that joined hands together with the nevela, the Isur that fell in. We're going to still apply the principle of no sitam of gam mutter. And we're going to paskin like Reish Lakish's second lishna, that if it became a tam pogum immediately when the mixture fell in, even though later on he adds salt, he adds spices, and it becomes a tam l'shvach, no. Once it's mutter, at the moment that it fell in, it was no saint tam l'fgam, it's mutter. Amar Rav Kahana midivrei kulam nilmad no saint tam l'fgam mutter. Now, this language of midivrei kulam in Rav Kahana, that everybody agrees unanimously that no saint tam l'fgam is mutter, implies that there's no one who disagrees. And Abai is a little upset. I agree with you on all the list of Amoraim. Reish Lakish didn't quote his own shita. Amro Kamar. He said Amru. Amru means this is what he heard from other rabbis. They wanted to say that if it's Tam Pogum, it's Mutter. But Leilos Firle, he himself, Reish Lakish, does not accept, he doesn't buy in to that Shita. Okay. Now, let's go back to Rav Kahana. Michlal de'ikamandi Omar de nosin Tamav Kamosa. If Rav Kahana says that Hani Midivrei Kulam, these listed, quoted, previously quoted Amoraim hold nosin Tamav Gam, he's mutter, then he's implying that there is another Shita that nosin Tamav Gam is also. So the Gemara wants to know, who can I identify that Shita? Who is this unique Shita that's Machmir and holds no Sitam Gam is Asur in Tanya, and we have it in a Brisa. And this Brisa quotes Rabbi Meir. He's the first Shita in the Brisa. Rabbi Meir holds, Echad nosin tam lifgam ve'echad nosin tam l'shvach asur de Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir is going to derive from the parsha of Giulei Nachrim, as we'll see later on, that even a tam pogum is asur. In fact, let me just add one comment here, that all of the laws of Hechsher Kalim, the Kalim that absorbed Easter, like, for example, Chametz Kalim for Pesach, are all based on the fact that there's such a thing as a Tam Pogum that is Asur. So, for example, when we fought a battle against Midian, and we took all the utensils from Midian, in which the Midianim had cooked who knows what kind of Isurim, you name it, and it was there. And therefore, if I cook in that Kli, there'll be a Tam that comes from the Kli. Says Rabbi Meir, that Tam is a Tam Pogum, because it's an Eino Ben Yomo. Okay, I'm going very far ahead of myself. Rabbi Shimon Omer l'shvach asur l'fgam mutter. So it's Dafka Rabbi Shimon who holds that nosin tam l'fgam is mutter, but Rabbi Meir holds nosin tam l'fgam. Also, my time with Rabbi Meir. Where did Rabbi Meir find a source for nosin tam l'fgam asur? After all, the Torah says about nevela, like ger asher b'sharecha titenena, give the nevela to a ger, which seemed to imply that it's edible. All right, it didn't have shechita, but it's a perfectly good piece of steak. So when does the Torah asa something? That's when it's for uyel a ger. It can be eaten by a ger. Ger here in this context means a ger tosha. But if it's tam pogum and it's not edible, it should be mutter. Why? Where did Reb Meir come off and saying no? See, tam of gam is also where? Gomer b'gi'ulei ovdei chavim. Right when we fought the battle of Midian, we took the utensils of the Midianim. They were idol worshippers, and they had all sorts of absorbed taste of Isur. And yet the Torah says that you have to be machshir the kelim. You can't use that kelim until they go through Hagala or Libun. Why did the Torah say that these kelim, these utensils that you took in the booty against Midian, require hechsher kelim? It's a nosin tam lifgam situation. And therefore, if you have a tam that's pogum, it's not a heter. There's no reason to be matir it. It's awesome, and we'll prove it from Gilei Nachrim. Ve'idach, what's Reb Shimon going to do with the parsha of Gilei Nachrim? And again, the Gemara is only asking on Reb Shimon, but really this kasha is on all the Amoraim who hold that nosin tam of gam is mutter. And the answer is, Kira Rav Huna B'rei Rav Chia. Diam Rav Huna B'rei Rav Chia lo asra Torah el kedei bas yoma, the lo lifgamu. When did the Torah say that you can't use the kalim that you took from the Nachrim because there's an absorbed taste of Isa? That wasn't referring to every kli that you took from the goyim. That was a kli ben yomo. That was a kli that was used by the Midianim within the last X number of hours today, and that gives a tam l'shvach. But once it's past the ben yomo and it's an eno ben yomo, then the tam becomes a tam pogum and it's mutter, and it's mutter. Now, the only technical question that you could ask here is, how would you know, whether the Nachrim used that Kli within the last, let's say, 24 hours, or some hold that Linus Laila Pogemis the last 12 hours? I don't know. That's a question. The idach knows, what did Rabbi Meir do with this argument of Rabbi Shimon that it's an Eno ben Yomo? Keder bas Yomanami efshad lo pagma purta. Even if the keder was used yesterday and has an absorption of a taste of Easter from yesterday, it's a real full tampog. But even if it was absorbed today, it's still a tampog. Purta. It has a limited element of tam lifgam, and we're not going to differentiate. If the Torah is saying it's also because of that tam, even though that tam is pogum, even though it's a ben yomo, but it's pogum b'miktsas, then the Torah is basically committed to the position that an eno ben yomo or a tam pogum is us. Rav Shimon my timer. What led Rav Shimon to his conclusion that no saying tam of gam is mutter? Yisad, he learned it from a apostle. Lo sochlu kol nevela geresha b'sharecha titanet. So what do you do with a nevela? You give it to a ger. Ger is a ger tosha. Kol ha'ra'uya leger kruya nevela. She'ena ra'uya leger, on the top of the next staff, ena kruya nevela. So this is the famous principle which we attribute to Rav Shimon, but everybody accepts this principle except for Rav Meir, that only nevela ha'ruya leger is us. So because when the Torah in one pasuk in the Reish it says Sochu kol nevela, nevela is prohibited, and then it says like ger asher b'sharecha. What do you do with the nevela? You give it to the ger. Apparently that nevela is edible for the ger, meaning it's a tam l'shva, and it's called re'uya leger. Then it's called nevela, and it's awesome. But if it wasn't re'uya leger, then it would not be awesome. And that's what the Gemara says here on the top of Samaches, she'ena ru'il leger, ena kriya nevela. For Rabbi Meir, we'll just read one more line. What is Rabbi Meir going to do with the fact that the Torah puts nevela together with ger in the same pasuk? Hahula mute srucha meikar. All right, so we'll see what srucha meikar is. I mean, just to give just a superficial definition of srucha meikara, that the Torah says that if it was rotten from the get-go, then it's not asur nevela. Let's say the animal, they give examples, was afflicted with boils, unfit for consumption. But if the nevela was fit for consumption at the time of the death, then even though the nevela now subsequently spoiled and became unfit for human consumption, it still remains us. Because Rebbeinu holds that the first stage locks it in. And it was Re'uya Leger when at first stage, when the animal died. What happens a day later cannot undo what the original status of Isur, the Hefter the Isur of Neveh. Okay then, so here's where we'll stop, and I'll wish you Chodesh Tov. Thank you so much.